Raise your hand if you have seen the movie Aliens. It's the second one in the series with Sigourney Weaver, who is playing Ellen Ripley. And this is the one where she comes back after fighting off the monster alien, and when she recovers, the powers that be come in and say, well, you know, that planet that you escaped from, we can't raise the colonists on the radio. Do you think you could go over there with some Marines and find out what's happening? Gee, I wonder what it could be. So she goes over there, and before you know it, Marines are getting chomped and chewed up by all these slimy aliens with razor-sharp teeth until they're down to just 6 of them in Command Central. Everybody in there is gathered around, and Bill Paxton's character, Private Hudson, he's doing his typical whining, what are we gonna do? We're trapped, we're all gonna die. And in the middle of all of this murder and mayhem, Ripley takes a step back, she takes a deep breath, and she says, get me specs and grids, I need blueprints. We have got to come up with a plan. She knew that you have to be strategic before you can go tactical. And she understood the C in CIA, which is create clarity. You need to create clarity to understand where it is that you're going. Now, with the client I'm going to be telling you about throughout this, my client, Nancy, was in public relations, and when I met her, she had been in PR for 30 years. So she started in the days where she sat next to a phone and a telefax machine in an office and watched her job evolve into being glued to all of these devices and having to be on call in this 24/7 news cycle. She called me in because she was literally a woman on the verge of a nervous breakdown. In public, she was super confident. But behind closed doors, she was what some people would call a hot mess. There were some times where she had so much going on, just a million things flying at her, that she just wanted to curl up in a ball and go to a different planet. She did not want to be there, even though she knew she needed to get things done. So with Nancy, we started with creating clarity. So I had her go through and choose her top 3 work priorities and her top 3 personal priorities. Now you might be thinking, well, duh, I already know what my priorities are. The problem is our priorities reside in the subconscious, and so until somebody specifically asks us, what are your priorities? In order for us to be more efficient with our time, we need those priorities in the forefront of our brain. We need to look at them every single day. Because when we decide what we're going to do with our time, we need to ask ourselves, is doing this task right now going to support one of these work priorities or one of these personal priorities? So it's very important that you're clear on what those are. Next, we chose targets for each of those priorities. Now, most of my clients start off having these really great goals like, I would want my website to be up 95% of the time, and I would like a higher customer service rating, and I would like to spend more time with my children. But when you use terms like more or less, that's all relative. And you don't actually know how far or how close you are to achieving that. So what ends up happening is you just spin your wheels round and round because you think you're not getting enough done, when in actuality you are doing so much more than you usually give yourself credit for. So it's very important to establish those measurable targets like 95% uptime with the website. I want to be able to give notice about an emergency within 15 minutes. So you establish your priorities, you create targets, and then also part of creating clarity is self-care. Because if time management is truly all about mind management, if you're not taking care of your body, then you are not taking care of your brain, and therefore, if you're not taking care of those, you won't make better decisions about how you use your time. So that's why it's absolutely critical that you eat as healthy as possible, you stay hydrated, margaritas don't count, make sure that you're drinking enough water throughout the day. And with Nancy, she was having a lot of heart palpitations. And she had gone to a therapist before hiring me, because she felt she was that close to nervous breakdown. And the therapist told her, you are maxed out on antidepressants, anti-anxiety, and blood pressure pills. You've got to cut back on stress. You've got to cut back on work. Don't tell a workaholic to cut back on work. How are you supposed to cut back on work when there's so much left to do? So that's why we had to start with her with creating clarity, having her understand what was most important on the job and what was most important in her life. So with Nancy, she cut back. Instead of 3 meals a day eating out, cut it back to 2. Instead of 5 cups of coffee or cans of Red Bull, if she was out of coffee, we narrowed it down to 3. So baby steps. You don't have to quit cold turkey. You can roll things back a bit. And when she felt procrastination coming on, or if she felt an anxiety level starting to rise, we had her do deep breathing and go for a walk, because walking gets the circulation going and gets the brain cleared up again. So it's very important that you start with creating clarity, because when you know what it is that you're living for, you also understand what it is that you risk losing if you don't pay attention to those priorities. And when you understand what it is that you're living for, you're going to be much more efficient during the day at work when you're trying to get everything done. So create clarity.